Okay, we're live on 3 platforms tonight. We're back on Twitch, which is so exciting, and it's a Monday night. Welcome back, everybody, after a beautiful weekend of fun. And we are recording on Anchor, our podcasting app, which sends this audio version of Pardes Live to a bunch of different platforms that are just audio, like Spotify and Google Play. And honestly, I only use Spotify, Breaker, Stitcher, Radiocast, all these random little podcasting platforms. Hey, Rosemary. It's always good to see Rosemary. Rosemary has been, like, I can't even remember how long I've known Rosemary because I feel like she's been here. Like, she's been following my stuff since, like, she's been here since, like, before everyone else was. I mean, since I was, like, not even doing anything. And it's so cool to see people like Rosemary, I feel like she knows everything about me, which is amazing, and she's still here. It's like I didn't scare Rosemary off, which is pretty cool. Apparently the YouTube isn't working. Let me check what's going on with YouTube. I've actually been having problems with YouTube for some reason, so let's see. Oh, it looks like it's working. I've been having some problems with YouTube. I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. Something is different. So I'm not sure. But I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. There's always technical difficulties and they always work out. Eventually it's fine. But something has changed. I've probably accidentally changed something. So it's fine. And hope everyone had an amazing weekend. Edit this video, description, update it, and then share it with you guys. Wait for everyone to get in here. And all right, we're live. Okay. Hey, Diacritical. Hey, Jonathan. Jonathan's weekend sucked. Why? Why'd your weekend suck? My weekend is actually pretty chill. What did I do? I don't know. I caused trouble. I caused some trouble. I went out. I went out a lot with people, and that was really great. Hey, Steph. I hung out with Steph. And that was pretty cool. And some other really valuable people that I've gotten to know here in DC. So this live stream is about moving to Washington, DC, and because the last 2 how-to live streams actually did pretty well, and it wasn't just the last 2, I've done how-tos before, and people really like them. So I felt like this just seemed like the automatic, like everybody wanted a live stream about Washington DC, moving to Washington DC, and so I decided to do it. And I was at a party this past weekend, and this other girl was saying how she's moving back to California, and she was here, she was working on Capitol Hill, or I don't remember where else she was working, but she was here, and she lives on the Capitol. She's moving back to California, and she said it was kind of harsh. Some of the stuff she described, it didn't sound like a her problem. It wasn't like, oh, you failed at Washington DC and now you have to go back. it sounded like she was dealing with a lot of the same problems that everybody deals when they come here, except that they don't have the resources to deal with. So she actually suggested that I do a live stream like this about what it's like and how people should prepare, what you should do, how to survive. And I probably am going to miss a bunch of things because I had my experience. I don't know everybody else's experience, but I'm proud to say after 3 years of living here, the first 2 years were just total craziness. It's still craziness, to be honest. I'm still living like a crazy, like roller coaster life in DC, but it gets better, and you learn a few things along the way, and it's never like, you know, once you figure it out, it's actually really fun to be here. All right. So first of all, I think the first really important thing about DC, about living here, I think to me is money, and it's probably anywhere you move, but especially Washington DC because of the work dynamics and how expensive everything is. So Washington DC is a very expensive place, especially if you live in DC proper and not in Virginia or Maryland, which a lot of people live in Virginia and Maryland, by the way. It's still part of the DC metro area. You still get on the train. It's still very just very nice places to live and still very close to everything. But a lot of people want to live like in DC proper, so it tends to get more expensive in the city. Definitely do your research before moving to a place in DC, before looking somewhere, because there are some parts of DC that are very dangerous that people won't even dare step into. I'm talking mostly about Southeast. So most people, you know, just if you're thinking of moving to Southeast Washington, DC, consult with someone, find out what the neighborhood is, because most likely it's going to be a very dangerous part of town, because that's the only part of town that's really cheap. And you know, some people won't even pass through it with their Uber car. They will just stay away completely. So that's in terms of finding a place to move. Don't move somewhere right away. Don't just like sign a lease before you know what's going on. First, come here, do like an Airbnb, sign up for the Washington DC Classifieds Facebook page. That's actually been the most helpful for me. That's what I use for everything. I use the Classifieds page to sell things. I use it to have someone take over my lease. I use it to take over somebody else's lease. I use it to find roommates. I found one of my best friends on that Facebook Classifieds group, and it's a really great resource. It's a huge page. There's like so many. There's like thousands of people in that group. It's the Washington DC apartments, sublet, whatever, classifieds. So it's really, that's the first thing you should do, is you should join that Facebook group. And it's so helpful. It's like Washington DC sublets, apartments, something, roommates, something like that. Somebody is apparently watching this from jail. Is it really possible to watch this from jail? Do they have internet in jail? Maybe I should do a live stream about jail, about being in jail. Not that I would know, but I once helped ghostwrite a book for a man who went to jail, and so I learned a few things. But if you are, I'm very honored, and I hope this helps you in case you ever decide to move to Washington, D.C. after you get out of jail. Anyway, apartment hunting. First join this Facebook group, And don't move to a place yet until you've gotten to know some people here. What I did when I first moved here, I came with one suitcase, and I came from New York. I didn't have anything on me really. And I moved into this, I found someone on Facebook that was looking for a subletter just for a month. So I moved somewhere just for a month until I looked for other places. So that was my temporary situation, and that was great. I lived with 2 roommates, and in Adams Morgan, and it's like this hippie part of DC, which was great. And then I found some other place. So definitely do something temporary in the beginning. And then another thing I would say is try and form relationships with your roommates before moving in with them, because roommates can make a big difference. It's not like you live in a place with your family or people you grew up with or whatever. DC is kind of like every man on his own, so every man for themselves. So you should definitely be very, very, very wary of the people you surround yourself with. So I guess 2 things I would say. Joe Anderson, thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate it. In case you're wondering who Joe Anderson is, he's the one who does, he uploads the audio version of this for download. In case anybody wants to download audio version, he uploads it online, and he also attaches it to this live stream on Periscope, so you can to the thread that I tweet about this live stream. So I'll retweet it in case anybody wants to download it and put it on their iPhone instead of having to listen to it on some other platform. All right. So the 2 main things: relationships and money. Okay? Let's go back to money. Okay. Find the cheapest place possible. You don't need a luxurious place when you first move to DC. It's an expensive city, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's very, in terms of like working situation, if you are going to live on Capitol Hill, if you're gonna, a lot of jobs, and there are a lot of jobs in DC, but oftentimes if you're coming in as a college student or just out of college or whatever, you might get a shitty job with low pay, and you don't know how long the jobs will last, especially if you work in media like I did. It's kind of all over the place. Even if you're like even if you are the type of person who stays at a job for really long, it is kind of hard in DC. I would say to keep a good salary, a good income for a while. So definitely when you first move here, because the pay, especially if you're also on Capitol Hill, most people are working either in media and politics, and both don't pay so well, especially in the beginning. So cheapest place possible. Find the cheapest living conditions, budget, save as much as possible. Even if you don't know what you're saving for, just save like crazy, as if you are gonna, like, I don't know, as if you're gonna be left on some ship and you need money. Okay? So live on a budget. What I do is basically I have a budget, a food budget every day. I have a budget for everything. But for example, food budget, you can have a food budget for $25, $30, $20 if you can go grocery shopping. If you do grocery shopping, you can actually do a $20 food budget. It's possible. Repeal the Heart Collar Act of 1965. Super chat. Thank you. I don't know what Heart Cellar Act is, but it sounds cool. I'm gonna look it up. And people are thinking like, I don't know if I want to move, how can I move all my stuff to DC if I live in a tiny place, if I have to share a room with somebody. I would say don't move all your things to DC, because DC is not a permanent place to live in. And if it does become your permanent place, then it means that you have enough money that you could stay there permanently. Then you can move all your stuff from wherever you came from, move it all to DC. But to start with, you don't need to move all your things to DC. Don't come in with a lot. Come in with like one suitcase. That was a huge lifesaver for me, not having a lot of things. Come in with one suitcase and live with other people. And it's good to live with other people. You get to know them. You're in a new place. You get to make friends. Okay? And budget. All right? Do always be looking for work. Always be networking. Go to as many events as possible. Talk to people. Find side hustles. Even if you have a full-time job and you have something else on the horizon, have a side. Don't be stuck with one thing. Because what happens in DC that doesn't happen in other cities is that Washington, DC has a really, really, really high influx of interns. So the way that companies here work that don't necessarily work in other places is that I just got distracted with a message. The way that the companies here work is that they'll basically take advantage of interns. So there are a lot of unpaid interns or interns that get paid very cheap. And companies can do that. They can go through them like water. They don't need you. You're just a number. And so if you can stay at at your coveted job for long enough, then you're lucky. But also you might not get paid a lot. And so you should not feel too attached to one thing. You should always try and always be side hustling, find a network, build a financial network, for me, it's finding clients for PR, whether it's writing for them, ghostwriting, or marketing or whatever. So find side hustles. When you try to get a job, negotiate high, because they can pay you. They have to be rich. They have to be thriving in order to be in DC. So it's not cheap. They can afford to pay you, even though they don't, because there's so many young people wanting to work here. So negotiate high, have side hustles, don't sign non-compete agreements. And this is a big thing because a lot of people will come to DC and they'll get a huge stack of papers on their desk first day of their job. And it's all these different contracts about how, there's a non-disparaging agreement. You can't say anything negative about this company. You can't, the NDAs, okay, NDA makes sense. There's the non-compete forms. That's the worst. A lot of firms in DC will make you sign something that will basically sign away all your rights to doing any of the work that you would do for them, from doing it anywhere else, even for 6 to 12 months after you leave. So let's say your job is writing. That was my job, writing. By the way, the last job that had me sign a non-compete form, I actually didn't sign it. So I refused to sign it, which I'm very happy about. But and they kept me there anyway. So see, they're not gonna fire you because you refuse to sign a non-compete form. That's another thing. So don't sign a non-compete form. if they fire you for signing a non-compete form, they were going to fire you anyway, because they're not going to fire you because you didn't sign a non-compete form, because they're really hard to enforce anyway. So yeah, Anton in the comments said it. Basically, it's like, for me, it was writing. So the non-compete form would basically say, okay, Pardes, this entire time that you're working with us, all your writing is owned by us, even any of your writing that is not for us or during the time of your hours at work, and even anything that is not writing but producing anything on the side that is media related, maybe videos or maybe artwork, even something technology related, even if you create if you write code or something that's any sort of technology related thing, even if you make that, we own the rights to all of it. And you may not publish in any other newspaper or even for yourself. Basically, this is ours. And even for 6 to 12 months after that, this stands according to the contract. And I know a lot of companies here do it. It's a very corporate thing, and I know a lot, I actually, a lot of places in LA do it. A lot of big cities do it. I wouldn't sign it. I know it's not even enforceable, but it's just like, for me, it's part of it was just the ego. I was just like, I'm not signing away all my rights. I'm not giving anyone the ability to say that they own all of me or all of my time, because it's not worth it. Because most of these firms that have non-competes, people, a lot of them, at least the ones that I've seen, people don't stay there for too long. So it's not worth it for somewhere that you're not going to even be staying for too long to sign away your rights, and they're not even going to pay you so much. The whole thing just seems so ridiculous. So I wouldn't sign these non-competes. Whatever. Tell them to go fly a kite. Okay. Social things. Try and live with people. I've lived alone and I've lived with people, and I can definitely say living with people was better. Why did I stop living with people? Well, the person that I was living with moved to New York City, and then I was too afraid of looking for anyone else to room with. So I was lucky to have found this person, and then I found a place by myself, which was actually a lot cheaper. And so in my mind, I was thinking it was kind of, I actually had a pretty good deal. I found a place that was it was like a studio, and it was even cheaper than having a roommate. It was just like a crazy deal. So I lived by myself. I lived by myself for like the first 2 years, and then now my living situation is kind of weird. I can't really explain it. But the first two years after living with my roommate, I lived by myself. And I had a pretty good deal. So actually the whole time that I was living alone, I was still paying less than I was paying when I had a roommate, which is crazy. It's such a good deal. But also, it was still more fun. Like, I did it for the deal, but it was still more fun when I had a roommate. We had parties. She was so nice. I loved my roommate. She was a nurse, so she wasn't even like really political. And it was in Adams Morgan. It was like such a hippie neighborhood. I would go to yoga every morning because they had like really great yoga in that area. And I loved everything about it. I would definitely find roommates, and that was a unique situation because the rent was so high, but find roommates in order to save rent and live with other people. You learn to be social, you learn to connect, you are less lonely, and you save up so much on money. And you also have people to rely on for different things, you know? You have a big, huge bug in your room at night. You can go and yell and someone will help you, you know? Like, there are so many benefits to having people living with you. There are different connections. So many people find all sorts of different connections and opportunities through their roommates, because these are people you're living with. They become kind of like your family. You're a family away from home. So definitely find roommates. Also, try not to stay alone in DC. Try not to be alone for too long. And I'm being a hypocrite because I spend a lot of time alone, but I really don't think that it's healthy, and it's not even necessary. Like I always say, in order to not feel lonely, you should just spend as much time alone as possible, so you should get used to it. But is it really necessary? It's not really necessary. Maybe don't spend all your time with one person so you don't become overly attached to them. But also, you don't need to be alone. So DC can be a very lonely city because people's families aren't here. It's so transient. People only come here for work. They're not necessarily coming here to become your friend or be nice to you. They're only here to have power, money, whatever career thing it is that they want to have. And that's why it can be a very lonely place, because friendship and connection is not the priority here. It's more of like political agenda and power and whatever else it is. So anyway, avoid the lonely trap. Try to be around people all the time. Even if you work remotely, go and work at a coffee shop where there's a lot of people. Always be around a lot of people. Okay. Next. Make friends. Be very careful about the friends you make. Be around people all the time, but when it comes to like actually making friends, people that you will actually spend more time with, one-on-one time with, that are in a, sort of your group, that you're gonna confide in, be very wary of those people. Make sure that you trust them. Make sure that you can take time to get to know them. Don't just like jump in and become friends with them right away. I'm not person to speak, because if I like somebody, I'll just be like, oh, best friends. But try and take time to know people and find out their intentions, see what they're like, how they see friendship, what they try to see in a friendship. For me, I've got so many different, I get so invested in what my idea of friendship is, that if I don't like other people, I won't necessarily notice if other people don't care as much. And so then I'll be like really disappointed. I'll have all these high hopes in friendship, and then it's like, oh no, like whatever. So be aware of what people want, what their intentions are. And I know it's like this everywhere, but in Washington, D.C., there's the added thing of politics. So when you're making friends in a place where people are also making allies, it's totally different. In normal places, people will make friends, and maybe they'll have ulterior motives, like they're trying to get a job, they're trying to sleep with you, they're trying whatever it is. So there's always going to be ulterior motives. Be wary of those. But in DC, there's the added ulterior motive of politics. People will be friends with you for different reasons. Oftentimes, for me, this is on my mind, is politics. And that's not a great thing, because DC is a very political city, and it can really ruin you if the people that you're friends with because of politics turn on you because your politics changed. So that can really burn you, and you don't want any of your relationships to be connected to politics. You want to be able to make friends that you can talk to about other things that are not politics. because politics can become a very toxic presence in your life when you live in Washington, D.C. People get really heated over it. It's so much fun. It can be really fun if you have a good support system, but make sure the support system comes before the politics. You have a support system, and then you can laugh about the politics. Instead of meeting people based on politics, and a lot of people meet friends through political circles, so then they fall into the trap of, okay, we're friends because we're political allies, and not because we came here with the intention of building real relationships. So, and also you get burnt out if you're always talking about politics at work, like your work is politics or media or whatever, and then you come home or you go out with your friends and that's all you talk about with your friends. It makes you burnt out. So definitely talk about politics with friends. Have friends that share your interests, but try and not get burnt out, and also try and be wary of people's intentions. So be guarded, but also always be trying to build friendships. Be guarded, but don't lock yourself up in a room, and don't just go back to your corner. Try to always be making friends. And just make distinctions in your mind between people who are looking to network, people who are looking to be friends, people who are looking to date, people who are looking to hook up. There are very different things, and there can be a lot of trouble if you don't make that distinction early on. Spend more time around one person or two people for longer periods of time, instead of spending a little bit of time with a lot of people. So fewer people, more time, instead of lots of people, less time. You don't want to be hanging out with another person every night. You want to be hanging out with one person many nights. You want, especially in a place like DC, especially in a place like DC where people come and go so much, and it's hard to form like lasting relationships. You want friendships where you spend more time with a few people that you are investing in their friendship. So fewer people, more time. It's all about the quality and not the quantity. Griffin O'Neill is saying that this is very similar to Hollywood. Yeah, they say DC is Hollywood for ugly people, and it's actually, I think it's very true. I think it's very true. You could definitely make a lot of comparisons to Hollywood, to LA in general. All right. Okay. So a lot of people come to DC, and there's a lot of, DC can be a lot of fun because of its transient nature, always meeting new people, there's always something fun or crazy going on. And some people, it's very likely to get caught up in like going to another party or networking or something every night, doing a different thing, and constantly hanging out with new people. And it's good. You should do that. You should be meeting new people all the time. Go out, have fun. People have hookups or whatever. Like, I don't know. People do all their college. They whatever they didn't get to do in college, they do it here, apparently. So whatever you're doing, just know that this is not contributing to your stability. So do it, have fun, but also have your base, have your friends. Whoever you're meeting during this time is not going to be your friend, is not going to be your soulmate, or even just your long-term relationship. You're not going to form meaningful relationships by going out at a different place every night. So make a differentiation. Have your base, which are your friends that you invested in, but then you can go and party and do whatever you want to do. All right. Be open-minded. There are all sorts of people in DC coming from all sorts of different states. And all right. Politics. Enjoy the politics. Take a break from DC every once in a while. Just take a break from things. It can get really intense here. DC has the highest rate of alcoholism. It also has the highest rate of mental illness, as I've mentioned before. And it's like the chicken or the egg question. Like, are people mentally ill here because it's DC? Or does DC have, or is DC attracting mentally ill people? So, it's probably both. But DC is just, bottom line, very intense city, very great and very beautiful, whatever, but it's also a very intense city, and so you don't want to be stuck here. You don't buy a lot of things. Live a minimalist lifestyle in DC, at least in the beginning. If you can't travel out a lot, if you don't have enough money to travel out a lot, have a minimalist lifestyle here so that you can do smaller trips without having to move a lot of different things. Okay. And of course, don't stay in DC forever. Nobody's staying in DC forever, so that's fine, but just in case you were thinking of doing it, don't. In case you're wondering, in case you come to DC, a lot of people come to DC and they're like, oh no, like, I'm awful and this is happening to me and that's happening to me. I'm becoming an addict. I'm becoming a coke addict. I'm becoming addicted to alcohol, this drug, that drug. My life is just in shambles. I'm coming here and I'm just having all these mental problems. I'm having mental breakdown, whatever, this and that. But the truth is that maybe it's not like that. Maybe these are not problems that are inherent to you, and maybe it's just Washington, D.C., because a lot of people don't have these problems outside of D.C., or if they do, it's not as big as when they're here. So just know that whatever craziness you're having in D.C., you won't have it when you go back to wherever you're going. And so it's not going to stay forever. If you think you're addicted to something here, you probably won't be addicted to it when you go back to wherever you're coming from. It's not very likely, because I don't know, actually. That's not how addiction works. But things change. All right. Steven, thank you for a super chat. Steven says, do you think drugs should be legal? Steven, why don't you call me? Sitting here waiting. It's a Kesha song. I think drugs should be legal. I think drugs should be legal. Should be taken off the black market. But I think that it should be over time. I think certain drugs should be legal. I can't necessarily speak for all of the different classes of drugs. Definitely, psychedelics should be legal. So weed, marijuana, and psychedelics should be legal all across the board. they should be declassified as, you know, I don't even know why psychedelics are still legal, but they should both be legal. But I don't know actually about the other drugs, actually. I don't know about the other drugs, so don't quote me on that. I haven't done other drugs. Like, I haven't done, I don't know, like heroin and coke and meth and all these other, like, it just seems scary to me. And it could be a bad idea to make it legalized, but at the same time, because it hasn't seemed to stop the opiate crisis. So, I don't know. Let's see. Nate says shrooms and DMT should be legal. Yeah, definitely shrooms. Yeah, I'm like usually for legalizing things, but I'm also like the older I get, the more I'm learning to be a little more moderate on the issue of making everything legal, because sometimes it's not so black and white, and sometimes we need a pragmatic approach instead of just the ideological, oh, like everything should be legal approach. Sometimes just based on the times. Okay. Russians who appear to be spies. Felix says, you don't need any psychedelics to have full out-of-body trips. Meditation can make you full trip insanely way harder than any drugs that I've tried. That's true. I've been meditating a little bit lately, although I didn't meditate today, which is why I've been crazy today, but it really helps, actually. And it's better because you can train your mind to do it. So you're a lot more in control for later. Definitely meditate more. Someone is telling me that that I'm presenting a narrow view of what DC is. This is DC according to Pardes. This is my personal experiences. I know that for a lot of people it's not like this, but this is surviving in DC according to Pardes. Okay, definitely try and take advantage of of the tourist attractions here. Take advantage of the free museums, monuments, the national parks. The parks are so beautiful. They're so underrated. Like, Rock Creek Park is so underrated. I try to bike through there like as often as I can, maybe like a few times a week. It is so beautiful, and it's just people don't even talk about it. I don't even think people even spend enough time there. There is so much nature in DC that is so underrated. People think of it as like this big, scary, hectic city. Well, you know what? There's so much nature that you could use to your advantage. It's not all gross, bad stress. There's a lot of nature that people can use. There are parks, hikes. We're close to a lot of things. We're close to, you could take a train to Philly, Wilmington, New York City. There are like national parks nearby. Shenandoah is like 2 hours away. Very beautiful. There are a lot of shooting ranges nearby. You can go to a shooting range in Maryland or Virginia. Let's see. Take advantage. Okay, so another thing is get rich then get famous. don't become famous in DC if you don't have the money to withstand all of it, because getting famous in DC is not like getting famous anywhere else. Getting famous in DC is usually going to make you a target in a negative way. Becoming famous in Hollywood means that you're an entertainer. Woohoo! Entertainer! Yay! Becoming famous in DC usually means that you are a political figure, something related to politics, and that usually comes with a lot of danger, and you become a target. So don't become famous in DC until you have a support system and a financial base to keep you steady when shit hits the fan. Rich, then famous. Rich, whatever, have friends, whatever, then become famous. If you think you are going to be famous or whatever. And then also make sure that you use leverage to your advantage. Unfortunately, it still is DC, no matter how much fun you have and how many friends you make and whatever. You don't know who the next person that you meet is going to be. There are a lot of amazing people, but you also have to watch out for the a-holes. So be guarded. And always, this is like, you might hate this advice, but this is like my personal advice. Always pretend to have money, and always pretend to have a strong network. Pretend that you have everything, even if you don't, because people try to poke at your insecurities here. And when people know that you don't have a lot of money, that you aren't getting paid a lot at your job, that you weren't getting, they'll use that to their advantage, whatever they need. If an employer knows that you were making $30,000 at your last job, they will use that to their advantage and want to only pay you $30,000. And that's anywhere. But DC especially, because it's such a concentration of just like trying to get power. It's just like a power thing, like a power minefield or whatever. And Patrick is saying, where is the real power in the country? Is it in DC or is it Wall Street? I think the real power is, personally, I think the real power is with the people online, and, you know, I think it's with the people online. That's, to me, where the power is. That's why I spend so much time online, because that's where, I think that's where things are going to happen. Okay, right. Yeah, leverage, pretend to have networks so people don't take advantage of you. Yeah, like if you're a girl, people will try to take advantage of you. People men often will promise all sorts of things, like, and you know, like, you will genuinely think that a guy is, like, an older guy is trying to get you a job and is interested in helping you out and is giving you a job at whatever, you know, whatever it is. And oftentimes, guys just these older guys living in DC by themselves, working whatever, oftentimes they are just trying to get laid. And they're going to take advantage of you and tell you that they're, you know, lead you into thinking you're getting a job. And you're not getting a job. The job never comes. You just end up going out with this person on business meetings or whatever, until you realize there's no job. There's no business opportunity. There's no nothing. This guy is just trying to get into bed. So it happens to a lot if you're a girl. just be wary of it. For me, my thing is I try not to have business meetings with men one-on-one. If I'm meeting with a guy, I try to make it a coffee meeting. I try to make it during the day. In the morning is the best coffee meeting in the morning because it's rushed and you're like, okay, I have to go to work now. And then if you feel comfortable enough, you think you trust this person to have another meeting, then you can do that, or you can just continue talking online. On your phone or whatever, communicating about whatever it is. But DC men might be a little different than other places because usually and not just men, also women. So women will go along with it sometimes because they're lonely. I think the loneliness plays a lot into it. And I don't know, this is just from what I've seen. So I don't know if hasn't been your experience. That's definitely been my experience. People get blindsided in their relationships a lot because the intentions are different and often miscommunicated, and sometimes intentionally miscommunicated. So always show that you have leverage. I sometimes like to pretend like I have a boyfriend, although now you guys know the truth. So, but in places where people don't know me or whatever, I like to pretend. And just 'cause, whatever. Pretend like you have a network of people even if you don't. People smell weakness. And one more thing. It's okay to be ugly if you're rich. And it's okay to be dumb if you're hot. That's my last two pieces of advice. It's okay to be dumb. It's okay to be dumb if you're hot, and it's okay to be ugly if you're rich. Because with money, you can get plastic surgery, and if you're hot, you can get a sugar daddy or sugar mama, and then everything will be fine. All right. Steven says, I'm considering a move to LA because I'm a writer, and that seems because of streaming, there's so much money for content there. What's life like in LA? Guys, I grew up in LA. My whole life, I spent 23 years living in LA, minus that 1 year that I spent in Israel. And life in LA is actually pretty cool. Like, for all the dunking on LA and whatever, life in LA is pretty cool. It's like a different country and very chilled. It's sometimes it gets boring because, like, people don't care about politics, but, like, they don't care about anything, in my opinion. People are just like, oh, like, so, I got this new skin regimen that I was focusing on lately. I've been, like, putting this new brand of concealer on my face, and I've been putting, like, toner that's, it's mixed with aloe vera, and so, yeah. And so, like, the conversations sometimes for me feel a little boring, and because I actually like the craziness that happens in DC. So sometimes it's nice to have both. But LA is definitely a cool place, and I kind of miss a part of the culture in LA. There's something about it that's kind of like down to earth and just chill. And the studies show that it is also a mentally healthier place to live in LA because just sunlight, and the weather is stable. It's not really moving a lot. So you basically have this nice, mild weather all year round, and the stability of it all does make for healthier mental state. All right. But if you are moving to LA, Steven, try and stay away from the dangerous areas, because like the thing that I don't like about LA is that you have to be like either really rich or really poor to live in a lot of places, because like the poor areas are so dangerous, the rich areas are so fancy, and it's hard to find things in between that you'll be able to afford like a normal person. So be wary of looking for affordable housing and affordable places to live, because you might end up in just like a war zone, like places where people won't step foot in because they'll get shot. All right. Joe says, LA is becoming an SHIT hole. Don't come. Everyone is trying to discourage Steven from moving to LA. I'm not going to try and discourage you from moving to LA. Just know what you are up against. As Joe says, rent is crazy high. Traffic is awful. Traffic is really bad. Depending on which part of the city you are, that's what's gonna determine how nice you live. Don't live in the shitty parts of town, otherwise you're really gonna have an awful, awful, awful time. Don't live in downtown. Like, my friend went to LA and lived in downtown. It's like, don't live in downtown. Downtown LA is not like downtown DC or New York, where it's like the nicest part of town. Downtown LA is a bad part of town. Don't live in downtown LA. Live in a safe, nice area and have roommates. And you're gonna be out all the time anyway, because it's just nice weather. So you're gonna be out. So you don't need to be inside cooped up with your roommate all day. So have roommates. Honestly, I'm like really big on having roommates, because people in general, we've become so like antisocial as like a human race, because we're so used to the internet, and we definitely need more like interpersonal connections. Having roommates would fix a lot of problems for a lot of people. It would you're sharing living situations, you're saving up money, less loneliness, more liveliness. Nate says downtown is getting to be expensive now. Wow. They're starting to be more expensive. That's interesting. Last time I was in downtown LA, it was just garbage. It was like a garbage dump. All right. Someone is asking, how can I find a roommate I don't even know to live in DC? Get to know the person online. Talk to them, through the search, you're going to get to know them a little bit as you search for housing together. Find someone that you're going to search for housing together with them. As you're searching for housing, you get to know the person, and then, you kind of get to know if you will get along with this person. And then if you are in DC at the time of your searching, go and search for houses together with the person that you found online. And also you can do like a trial period. You can be like, hey, let's live together for a month in this place until we find a better place. You can do it slowly, but usually through the process you get to know people a little bit. Ira says stalk their social media. Felix says, how could anyone live in a house with normal people? Ah! Felix, if you ever move to DC, find a roommate. Rosemary says, finding a roommate should be another theme. That should be another live stream. That's actually a really good idea. That's actually a really good idea. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do a live stream on finding roommates. Okay, I'm gonna say goodnight to the people on Anchor. Good night to the people on Anchor. If you want to see the video version of this, go ahead and watch it on YouTube. Video version of Pardes Live. Have a good night to Anchor people. All right. So I just said goodnight to the Anchor podcast people, just to make sure it doesn't go over their time. Any other questions? Good night, Steph. Oh wow, I'm curious to hear Steph's thoughts on this. Good night, Diacritical. Before anyone goes, any other questions? Felix says, what's the worst thing about DC? The worst thing about DC is... Good night, Steven. Thank you so much for Super Chat, Steven. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay, so the worst thing about DC is that, I mean, the worst part about DC is that it's so transient. For me, it's really hard for me to, like, I'm, like, really obsessed with having, like, you know, long-term relationships. I have one friend that I met in DC my first weekend in DC. I met this one guy, and we've been best friends ever since. I see him a few times a week. I work from his office sometimes, and he has an office in DuPont. Really amazing friend, my emergency contact, and that's like the most important thing to me, is having stable relationships that are long lasting, and it's so hard to find in DC. It's just like you're just being thrown in the wind all the time, because there's so many people come and go in your life, and they're, you know, only here short term. So that's the hardest thing for me, is getting, like, being okay with all the back and forth with different, you know, becoming friends with people, and then they leave, disappear suddenly, or they're don't have the same intentions that you have, or they don't have the, like, I don't know, just a lot of crazy back and forth. Definitely gonna do a live stream about roommates. Nate says, did you ever meet any CIA agents? Ha! Good question. DC has a lot of spies. Like, anywhere you go, there could be a spy. And it's not just CIA, it's a bunch of all kinds of different agencies that are working for the U.S. intelligence. And they're everywhere. And a lot of contractors, too, that are not necessarily directly working for the government. And Felix, as Felix says, Dan was actually on this live stream, and Dan was in the CIA for 9 years. And he still has, like, his security clearance. So Dan's a good example, and Dan actually, you know, he filmed Mosul. So he's still kind of in that world. He's Mosul, about the Iraqi battle overthrowing ISIS in Mosul, the second largest city in Iraq. It's really cool. Definitely go and watch it, the movie. that he directed and produced. You'll find it on Amazon. And Steph says there are so many effing rats in DC, except YouTube is YouTube nixed your comment, but I see it. A lot of rats. All right. Oliver says the CIA agents who tell you they're from the CIA don't count. That's true. All right. Blackgate. I don't know what that is. Political views. Rosemary says campaign, lobbying, government contracts are all spying on each other. Yeah. So another thing for me living in DC is that I don't have secrets. I don't keep secrets, and if I do have a secret, I always assume that it's gonna disappear. Yeah, I always assume that it won't be a secret anymore. If I do have a secret, I always assume that it will be found out, even if it's in my head, because sometimes, like, there's so much spying that happens in DC that is not necessarily spying for the government. It could even be like something as small as spying for a newspaper that you're writing a story for. People are spying on each other all the time. And there's also a lot of gossip. So to me, I don't see it's worth it to have secrets. And also, I try, it's easier to keep other people's secrets because you're not really thinking about other people's secrets because you're really not invested in their lives. You kind of like don't care about them as much. But it also helps because since you're not thinking about them so much, it's easier to keep their secrets because it's not on your mind all the time. But I also try and not keep friend secrets. I try to tell if I have a friend with secrets, I try to avoid hearing people's secrets because I don't want to be liable for any of their, secrets or whatever. Don't keep secrets in Washington, D.C. And don't hear people's secrets too. Don't let people tell you their secrets. No secrets. Secrets are bad. Nate says, who's the most famous politician I ever saw drunk at a bar? Probably Corey Lewandowski, and he was passed out. Oliver says, yeah, I agree. A lot of spies are not government employees. Even the ones that are working for the government are not even employees. They are just informants. Ira says, wear earplugs at all times. It's actually a good idea. You wear earplugs, people will trust you. They'll say whatever they want in front of you. Okay. Any other questions before we go to bed? Okay. All right, this is actually one of my... I really enjoyed this one. And it's not just because of Steven's Super Chats, but I also enjoyed it. So definitely see you all tomorrow night. I like the idea of doing one on roommates. So see you all tomorrow night. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And have a wonderful evening.